Reaction. Let's welcome into Republican strategist Luke Ball and Bobby Eberle. Great to see you today. Luke, to you first. Is this a mistake from Democrats to keep using this rhetoric? Election day just around the corner. They've gone from joy to now fear.
It's not just a mistake, it's an egregious sin, because when you leap to this rhetoric, it basically invokes this violent mentality, because you can call your opponent dumb or not intelligent. You debate people who are dumb and not intelligent. But when you're calling them Nazis and Hitler and domestic terrorists, that invokes this violent imagery. I mean, what do you do to terrorists and what do you do to Hitler? It also cheapens the sacrifice and the horrible things that happened during the Holocaust and the horrible things that the Nazis did. You just don't make that equation unless you are desperately running out of things to throw at the other side. So when the left stops winning on their debate or their policy arguments or things like that, which happens far often more than not, they start leaping to this ridiculous rhetoric, this horrible imagery that they want to invoke in the hearts and minds of the American voters that is not equivalent at all. They are trying to link Republicans, who are the party of freedom and liberty and making sure that every American has an opportunity in this country, to a political party that does horrible things, was a horrific example of what any sort of movement is supposed to be, and it is just a straight up falsehood.
Yeah, Bobby, it seems like this is just a pure form of desperation right now. 7 days out, you know, they kind of stopped with this rhetoric after Donald Trump was shot. They slowed up a little bit, but now they're hitting the gas pedal full blown right now. And you look at that article from Politico that came out, really calling them out, you know, saying this is not a smart move by Kamala Harris. This has to stop, because everyday people, the people that are going to the polls, they care about the economy. They care about immigration. They care about the policies that will directly affect them and their families. I just think they're sick of the name calling.
Right, that's right. And the word you used is actually the best. It's desperation, because since the summer, we've seen everything from the Kamala Harris campaign, right? They started with a Joe Biden basement strategy, tried to keep her hidden. That wasn't working. So someone had the bright idea, let's put her out there and actually talk issues. And that has been a disaster. Every time she tries to talk about issues, it falls flat. No one knows what she's saying. And so they resort to, they go back to what they know the best. And that is bashing President Trump. And to see the rhetoric again, since July 13th, 2 assassination attempts, they talked about the heated rhetoric. And now it's back. That is their closing argument, is to call Trump a Nazi, a fascist, and group everybody basically that was there at the Madison Square Garden rally as some white supremacist Nazi supporters. That is, you know, there's no wonder there's criticism out there, because people don't resonate with that. This closing argument has to be, what are you going to do for the country? Not how bad your opponent is, but what will you do? And she has never been able to make that case.
Yeah, and I don't think that she'll be able to within this next week. Luke, I mean, if you turned on the news yesterday, that's all you saw. And unfortunately, there are people that watch some networks and read some media outlets that actually believe what they're saying, and you've got a lot of independence there. I mean, Media Research Center just came out with this, that as far as the amount of negative ads, so 85% of TV hits were negative for Trump. 78% positive for Kamala Harris. So when you're going on social media and you're reading the news and you're watching it and you see these types of stories, do you think that that does have an effect on people, or do you think they're going back to saying, all right, well, I'm not really sure I believe and I trust the media, and I'm going to vote with what's going on in my wallet and how safe I feel?
I think we've made significant progress in the fight against this one groupthink with mainstream journalism by having independent outlets and social media platforms that allow for this free speech, allow for different ideas to be exchanged. There's no longer this opportunity for just one narrative to be so pervasive among every media platform. But it is also dangerous, because people do have their lives to live. And when they start to tune into politics closer to the election, they'll hear things like Trump is a fascist, or he held a Nazi rally, and ridiculous things of that nature, completely ignoring the fact that Bill Clinton and Jimmy Carter also held rallies at Madison Square Garden. And so ultimately, it's up to the American people to be responsible enough to vet each candidate and look at their particular policies. And we're in a very unique position right now. We have two candidates who have been in a position of power near the Oval Office. Donald Trump gave us 4 years of prosperity, of peace in the Middle East, of ensuring that we secured our southern borders. Kamala Harris has given us 4 years of an abysmal foreign policy, sky-high gas prices, sky-high grocery prices, and failed as the borders are. So we have things to compare each other to. And when Americans go into the voting booth, it's about how they feel about their current situation. It all comes down to the economy. That is the top #1 issue that Americans are facing right now.
Yeah.
And so I hope that despite this horrible coverage by the left-wing media, Americans will see through it and feel in their hearts who their best candidate is.
Yeah, and to further this conversation about media bias, so for the first time, the Washington Post has decided not to endorse a candidate. Jeff Bezos writing an op-ed yesterday. It says the hard truth, Americans don't trust the news media. And he goes on to explain why. And that's why they're not endorsing a candidate. They lost 200,000 online subscribers just yesterday. I think that says a lot about the people that are reading the Washington Post on a daily basis, Bobby. But what do you make of this? I mean, Jeff Bezos is coming out saying, I know that they don't trust us. They don't trust a lot of media. That's why the LA Times also not endorsing anyone. That speaks volumes, though.
Yeah, well, it's easy for these leftists to be hard leftists when you can censor people, like in the 2020, when you have woke and you have DEI just running rampant. But when people actually fight back, when they say, hey, we don't want this kind of thing, ultimately these business leaders are business leaders, and it comes down to the bottom line. And if you can't be woke and you can't do DEI, maybe we should actually cater to the greater audience and not just a fringe, a segment of the population. And maybe that's what they're seeing. I mean, the endorsements by these left-wing papers don't mean anything because all people will do is nod their head and say, yeah, of course. I mean, of course they were going to go for Kamala. And so there's no real debate there. But I really think that it's hitting their bottom line. They're seeing Trump surging, and they're thinking, well, you know what? We might have to work with this guy for the next 4 years. And so maybe our reporters will bash him, but we have to run a business.
Yeah, you mentioned the bottom line. So it's worth noting that the Washington Post has 2.5 million subscribers. Only 200,000 dropped out. So
yeah, that's it.
That's
it. Just
all right, bit. Luke, Bobby, thank you guys so much. Appreciate it.
All right, friends, thanks again for tuning in. I really appreciate it. And before you go, please hit that subscribe button above. Once you do, tell your friends, share it, spread the word about the 13-minute news hour so we can keep growing. And for more great content, check out these videos right here, and I'll see you next time.